I don't think Thor: The Dark World is as bad as everybody makes it out to be, but I definitely understand why it's considered one of the weaker MCU movies. I'm continuing my journey through every MCU movie on the road to Avengers Doomsday, and today we're talking about Thor: The Dark World. And coming back to this one, there are actually parts of this movie I really enjoy, but there's also one huge problem that holds almost the entire movie back. Starting with the good, Thor himself. I actually like Chris Hemsworth a lot more in this movie than I did in the first Thor. He feels more comfortable as the character, he's more confident, and we're starting to see little pieces of the Thor that he eventually becomes later in the MCU. But honestly, Loki might be the best part of this entire movie. Tom Hiddleston is just ridiculously good in this role. Every time Loki shows up, the movie immediately gets more interesting, and after everything that happened in the Avengers, I really like seeing Thor basically being forced to work with somebody he knows he can't trust. You're constantly waiting for Loki to betray him, and their relationship gives us some of the best scenes in the movie. I also think the movie handles Frigga surprisingly well. Her death actually gives Thor and Loki something emotional to work with, and Loki's reaction afterward is one of those small moments that reminds you there's way more going on with him than just being the villain. And visually, Asgard still looks great. The funeral scene especially is beautiful. I also really like that this movie spends more time showing us the different realms and making Thor's side of the MCU feel bigger. But then we get to the biggest problem, Malekith. This might be one of the most forgettable villains the MCU has ever had. And that sucks because Christopher Eccleston is a really good actor, but Malekith barely has any personality. His motivation basically comes down to wanting to use the ether to cover the universe in darkness. And that's about it. There's just nothing about him that makes me excited whenever he's on screen, especially when you compare him to Loki. You have this incredibly charismatic character right next to a villain who feels completely lifeless. And unfortunately, that affects the story too, because whenever Thor and Loki are together, I'm interested. Whenever the movie goes back to Malekith and the Dark Elves, I can feel myself checking out. The Jane Foster stuff is also kind of mixed for me. Natalie Portman is good, and I like the idea of Jane accidentally becoming connected to the ether, but I still don't completely buy Thor and Jane as this huge MCU romance. Their chemistry isn't terrible, it just never reaches the level the movie wants it to, and the movie has this weird tone where it wants to be this darker fantasy story, but then it'll suddenly throw in a joke that completely changes the mood. Some of them work, some definitely don't. The final battle is actually pretty creative though. Thor and Malekith falling through portals and getting thrown between different locations is probably one of the coolest ideas in the movie. Seeing Mjolnir desperately trying to find Thor while he keeps getting teleported everywhere is hilarious, and I wish more of the movie had that kind of creativity, because that's basically Thor: The Dark World for me. There are pieces of a really good Thor movie here. Thor and Loki are great together. Frigga gets some genuinely emotional moments. Asgard looks incredible. And knowing where these characters eventually end up actually makes certain scenes hit harder on a rewatch. But the villain is forgettable, parts of the story drag, and there just isn't enough here that really sticks with me after the credits roll. So I'm giving Thor: The Dark World a 6 out of 10. I don't hate it. I'd even say I enjoy more of it than I remembered, but compared to the MCU movies we've watched so far, this is definitely toward the bottom for me. And now I want to know, is Thor: The Dark World actually underrated, or does it deserve to be considered one of the weakest MCU movies? Let me know in the comments and subscribe, because I'm reviewing every MCU movie on the road to Avengers Doomsday, and we're only getting started.